Today, as we enter geometry, we want to talk about geometry basics. You know, geometry is like learning a foreign language, only with math in it. Now, in geometry, we're guided by certain rules, just as if you were a baseball player. You'd need to know the rule book in order to play baseball. Well, it's similar in geometry. We have a rule book. It's made up of postulates and theorems. Now, postulates are statements that are common sense statements, and they're accepted as true without the need to be proven. On the other hand, theorems, these are statements that need to be or have been proven using postulates, other theorems, properties, and other rules. Now, geometry is based on three undefined terms. The first term is point. A point is a location in space. Has no shape or size. Now, we indicate a point so that we know where it is. We put a point so that we know where it is. Otherwise, we wouldn't know where it was. Now, naming a point. We name a point with a capital letter. For example, this could be point A, or this could be point E. That's the way we name a point. Now let's look at a line. A line is one-dimensional. It goes on forever in both directions. This could be our line right here. Has an arrowhead at each end, and we name a line with two capital letters. Line A, B, or with a small letter. We could say this was line L. So we could say line L, or we could say line AB. Shorthand for writing line AB would be like this. It's also reversible. We could say that's line BA. So that line goes from negative infinity to positive infinity. Now, let's talk about some forms of lines. A ray. A ray looks like this. It has a starting point and it goes on forever in the other direction. Now, we could name this ray AB. So, in shorthand, we would do it like this, ray AB. It's important to notice that this is not BA, ray BA. This is not correct. It doesn't start at B and go through A. It starts at A and goes through B. Now, a segment, here's how we indicate a segment. It has a starting point and an ending point. This could be CD. So we would write it shorthand like this, CD. We could also say DC. It would also be acceptable. And then an arc, we'll talk a lot about arcs. if we have a circle and we have an arc like this, we could say this is EF. So that arc we would write in shorthand as arc EF with a curved hat on top of it. So that would be arc EF. Okay. Now, let's talk about the third undefined term, the plane. Now, a plane is two-dimensional. It has no thickness. And we can represent a plane kind of like this. It goes on forever in those directions, like this. Now, we can name a plane in two ways. The first way is with a capital cursive letter in one corner. That'd be plane R. Capital cursive letter. The second and more common way is we can use three non-collinear, three non-collinear points. Now, if we wanted to talk about definitions just a second, collinear. The word co means with. Linear, a straight line. Collinear would be with the straight line. Non-collinear would be not with the straight line. So, for example, three non-collinear points, we could have point A, capital letters, point A, point B, and point C. Those are not all in the straight line. So three non-collinear points, capital letters. Okay, to finish out the definitions, coplanar. Again, co is with, planar is with, planar is the plane. So it's with the plane. Non-coplanar is not with the plane. Okay, so that pretty much defines planes, the way we name them. Remember, it's two-dimensional, has no thickness. Now let's talk about lines just a minute. Parallel lines and skew lines. Now, we'll talk later about perpendicular lines, but parallel lines, the definitions between parallel lines and skew lines are very similar. Parallel lines are coplanar lines that never touch. So in other words, if we had something like this, we had a box like this, and we had a line here, a line here. These two lines, and we said, let's say this is A, this is B, this is point C, and this is point D. Then these two lines would be parallel, and we would say that line AB is parallel. That's the way we indicate parallel to line CD. That's the way we would write that in shorthand. Now, if we want to talk about skew lines, skew lines are non-coplanar lines that never touch. Okay, let's see what that would look like. So if we had, again, our box here, put a box here, and we had a line like this, and we had a line like this. Now, so if we said this was line EF, this is line CD, so what we would say is that line EF and line CD, we would say that those are skew lines. Because they'll never touch, but they're non-coplanar. Whereas the parallel lines, they never touch either, but they are coplanar lines. Okay. Now, let's look a little bit at angles. Geometry is all about angles. So firstly, we'll talk about vertical angles. Now, vertical angles, in order to talk about this, let's also introduce congruent. We have a symbol like this that means congruent. And congruent is same size, same shape. So if we have two lines that cross, okay, we want to name these lines line AB and line CD. Okay, so here, when we have two lines that cross like this, and we named, let's just name these angles by numbers. Let's say this is number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. So here we would say that line 1 is congruent to line 2. And then we'd say that line 3, not line, but angle, angle, these are angles. Angle 3 is congruent to angle 4. So anytime two lines cross, two intersecting lines cross, we're going to form vertical angles. And the ones across from each other will be congruent. These will be usually a different measure, but they will be congruent. Okay, so let's look at a linear pair. Now, a linear pair, the angles are supplementary. So if we had something like this, and we had an angle here, and we had an angle here, angle 1 and angle 2. And if we had those, and they're supplementary, that means that they add the angles, add to 180 degrees. So here we would say that angle 1 plus angle 2 sum to 180 degrees. Okay? Now, we could also talk about adjacent. The word adjacent. Adjacent means next to. I sat adjacent to him at the ball game. Next to. So these two angles are adjacent. They're next to each other. So we say angles 1 and 2 are adjacent. Okay, now let's look at complementary angles. Complementary angles. Now, complementary angles are two angles that sum to 90 degrees. 90 degrees. So if we had something like this, we had an angle here, this was 90 degrees. We had angle 1 and angle 2. So we would say that angle 1 plus angle 2 was equal to 90 degrees. Now, students generally have a difficult time remembering about supplementary and complementary, which was 90 degrees and which is 180 degrees. And one thing I think of to help me remember that is that complementary comes early in the alphabet, whereas supplementary comes much later. And I think of that as being larger. So early in the alphabet, complementary is 90. Later in the alphabet, as supplementary is 180 degrees. So that's just some of the basics to get us started in geometry.